A very good evening, and thank you for joining us for this Bible study. We are talking about the Great Reset and the coming New World Order. And last week we looked at a few very important things as to what the Great Reset is and what the Bible says about it. So remember that in this Bible study we are looking at current events in the world in the light of Bible prophecy. And the Great Reset that the World Economic Forum and the rest of the world is talking so much about is certainly prophetic in nature. It is the beginning of the fulfillment of certain clear and specific prophecies regarding the tribulation and the Antichrist. So we have seen that the Great Reset is not a conspiracy theory. It is something that is being spoken of, verbalized by the people who conceived this idea. They have written books about it, they are making videos about it. I'm not talking about people who, people like me, for example, talking about it. If only people like us were talking about it, then maybe you could consider it a conspiracy theory. But you see, the World Economic Forum, which conceived this idea, to be more specific, Klaus Schwab, who conceived this idea, himself has written books on this subject, right? If you go to their website, the World Economic Forum website, you will see that they have dedicated a great amount of space to talk about the Great Reset. So what is the Great Reset? I have said last week that it is an economic reset. It is to do with bringing in a one world economy. It is to do with bringing in a cashless economy, as we're going to see today, if we have the time. And then that is step one. The step two would be to bring in a one world government, and then finally a one world religion. Now all three of these are spoken of specifically in the Bible, in Revelation chapter 13, the chapter which talks about the Antichrist, the beast, and the false prophet. And we have seen that the World Economic Forum, an independent organization started in 1971 by Klaus Schwab, right, a German man, came up with this idea of the Great Reset, the Great Economic Reset. Well, if it had to do only with bettering the world's economic structure, we could think that, there's nothing wrong with that. But the kind of things that are involved in this Great Reset are not things that people would do to make the world a better place to live in. They are doing this, as we have seen, for absolute control. The only reason they have come out with the Great Reset, or the Agenda 2030 as it's called, right, where you will own nothing and you'll be happy, is to bring in absolute control of the masses of this world into the hands of a privileged or elite few. That's the agenda. That's what the Great Reset is about. And it begins by resetting the economic structure of the world. So we have seen that in the previous Bible study. And we have also seen that they make use of technology. They make use of technology in order to bring in this Great Reset. Right? They call the world a global village now, and rightly so. Right? And through this advent of the internet, they have made the world a global village, firstly. They've brought in a one world culture, one way of thinking, even I would say a language. Now, I'm not talking about language like the English or some other language. I'm just talking about how people who think in one way and practice one culture speak in a certain way, speak in the same way. And that's what they want, because once the people are centered around certain things, they can easily sway them in the direction that they want. So that's what is happening with this Great Reset. It's to do with absolute control, and they are making the best use of technology in order to do that. Now, we have also seen that they have experimented with this in China. They have this social credit system which makes use of technology to score the citizens, whether they do good so they get more points, or they go against what the government says they should be doing, they get less score. and we have seen what happens to people in China. It's not just to do with China. These experiments were to some degree or the other conducted in various countries of the world, especially after the Second World War. In America, they had an experiment called the eugenics. I'm sure that many of you have heard of it. Again, something, it's a conspiracy theory. It's not. It's very much a government-funded project, right? They tried to do the same thing which Hitler tried to do in Germany and in other parts that he had conquered. So all these things have been experimented with, and making use of technology today, they are able to achieve their goal. They're able to achieve their goal. And today I'm going to talk about something, again, which is very related to what the Bible says is going to happen in the tribulation. Now, for those of you who do not understand end times or eschatology as it's called, a biblical eschatology is a premillennial, pre-tribulational eschatology. The church will be raptured before the tribulation begins. Now, all these things, when they are taken to their conclusion, right, when their experiments are taken to their conclusion, or when their goals are achieved, that will happen in the tribulation, not now in the church age where we are living. But we may see a lot of things happening as we are already. Like I've said, this experiment with China, we have seen it. And they're doing similar experiments in many nations of the world. Centralization of resources and power, they're pushing towards it, right? Trying to gain absolute control. Well, right now, many nations and their governments are somehow or the other taking control of their population, of their citizens. Later on, all these various governments will be brought under one government, and that one government will have absolute control over all the nations of the world. And we have seen that in Revelation chapter 13. In Revelation chapter 13, it says in verse 4, and they worshiped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Verse 5, and there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months. He is given power to rule for 40 and 2 months, that is 3.5 years, 1,260 days. Absolute control, absolute power. So what they are doing today is that they are laying a foundation for this to become a reality. For a new world order. They are laying the foundation, they're building the structure to establish a new world order. Right? So you must be aware, as a born-again Christian, you must be aware that these things are happening today. And we as God's people should pray, not only pray against these things, but do what we can against these things. Speak out and let other Christians know, so that they don't get carried away with this flow, right, and become a part of this system unknowingly. So every Christian should be informed about this. All right, so today I'm going to talk about something called a digital ID. And again, who is pushing this digital ID system? It is once again the World Economic Forum. Very strange. Why would the World Economic Forum push for a digital ID? And it's not just the World Economic Forum, I'll just write WEF for World Economic Forum, but the banks are pushing for it. I heard a lady talking about it, and she made a very sensible point. I don't know who she is, I don't remember her name, but she made this excellent point. When she saw that the banks are pushing for it, and some of these big institutions, financial institutions, are pushing for a digital ID, she said this: how is it that the banks and the financial institutions never pushed for change in other areas of life? Why is it that they never pushed for change, for example, from using a cassette player to a CD player or to a DVD player? They never did that, right? Those things were nice, good improvement in technology. but they never pushed for any of those things. Why are they so interested in a digital ID? Now that's a thing that you need to think about. Now look at Revelation chapter 13 and verse 16. Revelation 13 and verse 16. And he causeth all, that is the Antichrist or the false prophet, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Now look at the beauty of the accuracy of the King James Bible. This is a sure sign that it was inspired by God. Instead of saying on their right hand and on their foreheads like many modern English versions say, the King James, the Authorized version of 1611, says that the mark of the beast is in their right hand and in their foreheads. I will talk about that a little bit later, but make note of that. So the Bible talks about something like a digital ID already. It's not something like it is. The Bible did speak about it. 2,000 years ago, God, who made us, knew what was going to happen in the tribulation and what methods would be employed by the enemy, by the Antichrist and by the false prophet to bring in absolute control of the world. And God spoke about it. We call it a digital ID. The Bible calls it a mark. And why does the Bible call it a mark? If we have the time, we'll look into that as well. But it is a biometric system, you see. The digital ID is basically a biometric system. That will recognize you by your unique identity, right? or your unique physical features or characteristics. It's a biometric system, and it will identify your unique physical characteristics. And we know what those are, like facial recognition, right? That's already there. Or the recognition of your iris, which is also already there. When I had to go for a visa for a certain country, right, they made me look into a machine and it scanned my eyes, my iris, right? So now they know me. The next time I go there, all they have to do is scan my eyes again and they'll know when I visited that country and when I exited it. But that's, of course, the most basic way of making use of it. Fingerprint scan, that also is already there. So all these things are included in this biometric system. What are they saying? They're saying that having a card in your pocket as an ID is not enough, or at least not safe enough in the days that we are living in. We need a digital form of that ID, which would have, stored in it, again, your facial features, your eyes, your fingerprints, everything. And it could have much more than that. So that, if you lose your physical ID card, you'll have a digital one. If it gets burned in a fire, or you lose it, or something happens, you'll have it there in the system and you'll never lose it. But you see, well, that's a good thing in one way, right? Not everything about these things are evil, by the way. At least now in this time that we are living in, before the tribulation begins, we certainly can make good use of some of these things. But again, there is a bad side to it as well. They will have all our information. Why should somebody have all our personal, private information? That gives them power over us, and we don't want that. Well, just to have a digital ID is one thing, right? But to have all that information stored in that ID, I don't think any sane person would be comfortable with that. So they're calling it a federated digital ID. Now, this is specially being introduced in Canada. This is being done, this is being experimented in Canada, and again, it's the bank. There is this guy, I don't know who he was again, who speaks about, he's from a financial institution, probably a government financial institution, and he's pushing for a digital ID. And he says, in his short presentation about digital IDs, he says that the World Economic Forum agrees with us on the importance of having a digital ID. What does the World Economic System have to do with a digital ID? What does a bank Why is the bank so interested in pushing for a digital ID? So they're talking about a federated digital ID in Canada, in which all your information will be stored, right? They call it a federal digital ID ecosystem. They call it an ecosystem. They call it an ecosystem because a lot of organizations are involved in it, like the government, all government organizations, right? And then you have telecommunications, financial institutions, law enforcement, the medical industry. All of these are involved in this digital ID. So that's why they call it an ecosystem. That means if you just give your digital ID, your medical history will be there in it, right? Or if you want to apply for a passport, or you want to apply for a driver's license, right? Anything to do with the government, all that will be made possible through the digital ID. Telecommunications, you want to have an internet connection or something of that sort, right? You need to use your digital ID. But then, of course, they would be able to monitor everything that you're doing. So all these things together are called an ecosystem. Of course, the banks, you want to access your bank account online, you can use your digital ID. Right, so all these things are being put together, and it's being experimented in Canada right now as we speak. The thing is, in order to bring us to that point where, you know, all control will be placed in the hands of an elite few, they started introducing these things slowly, step by step, into the lives of people, so that now we are desensitized to these things. This is very important. This is a strategy that the devil uses again and again, and that is desensitizing us to some evil in this world. If we are constantly exposed to, right, or if we constantly practice some things, we become used to those things and we don't see whether it's good or bad. We just see if it works or not. And that's dangerous. So what they have done is they have desensitized us to this whole thing about having a digital ID. They're trying to normalize it. They're trying to make it look like it's a technological advancement. You see? If you don't jump on the bandwagon, then you are missing out on some great privileges that you can enjoy. For example, many people cannot buy a flight ticket and fly. Why is that? Because probably they don't have an ID. They don't have an ID because they cannot get one made. Maybe they don't have a birth certificate, or maybe they don't have enough documents to procure an ID, whether it's physical, digital, whatever it may be. So if you don't have an ID, you cannot buy a plane ticket, a flight ticket, right? You cannot enter an airport, at least here in India. You don't show your ID, they don't allow you to go inside the airport. So you have to do that. So you see how they're trying to make it look like you're not a part of this progress of technology if you don't get yourself one of these things. So what they did, as I've said, was step by step they started introducing these things to us. Like, for example, in your cell phone, right, you can store your credit cards. And you go to a mall or to a shop or whatever, and when you go to pay for the things that you purchase, all you have to do is tap your cell phone on that machine they have, and it takes the amount automatically from your phone, or it actually, of course, goes from your bank through your phone or through your card. So you see how they didn't force it on us. Well, even now I have the choice whether I would like to store my cards on the phone or not. You still have the choice. But they're trying to make it look attractive. Look how easy we are making your life. All that, you know, if you maybe forget your wallet and you forget your cards at home and you go to buy something, you're stuck. You have to go back all the way home, get your card, and then make the payment. But instead, if you don't generally forget your cell phone, right, wherever you go. And if all that information is stored on your cell phone, all you have to do is use it there, whether you have your credit cards or your bank cards or not. So they made it optional. Right now, it's in your hands. You can choose whether to do that or go the old-fashioned way. It's up to you. But the point here is this. The point is that they are trying to desensitize you to this. They're trying to make it normal, normalize it in your life. Oh, it's a normal thing for me to have my cards on the phone. It's a normal thing for me to make use of this technology. You see that? How they are slowly trying to push that. But there will come a time. Now, this is being done by the private sector, right? The companies which make the cell phones and companies like that, what they're trying to do is they're trying to introduce this new technology into our lives, trying to make it a part of our lives, trying to even make it slowly but steadily an indispensable part of our lives. Correct? So this is the private sector. It is leading the way in this and offering these things, right? Like the digitization of your ID. They're saying, why do you want to take the risk of carrying a physical card in your pocket? If you forget it somewhere or lose it or it's destroyed, it'll be a problem. Just store it online. The private sector is pushing it. You see, that's very important. It is their role to make it normal in your life. Right, they're saying, you know, all your bank cards can be there, your ID can be there online, your medical history. Your medical history can be online so that if something happens to you somewhere, right, we don't need all those files with all those notes of the doctors. Everything will be there online. If you have your ID, that's enough. The doctors in the hospital will know all your medical history, your allergies, everything, and they'll be able to treat you for your problem. We are making life easy for you. Certainly, some of these things sound very good, but you see where they are leading to ultimately? This will be used later on by governments to get absolute control. You see, now the thing is this, very important thing to keep in mind. Right now, this digital ID and all these things are optional, right? If you wish, you can do these things. But the thing is, the way banks are pushing this whole thing about digital ID and the way financial institutions are pushing it, the way the World Economic Forum is pushing the digitization of your IDs, it looks like very soon it's going to be mandatory. Without having a digital ID, you probably will. You see, maybe 20, 30 years ago, at least here in this country, we didn't need any ID really, you see. We could go wherever we want. Nobody would ask us for an ID. Nobody would do that. They'd just take our word for it. But now, everywhere we go, nothing can be done without having an ID. You see, now it's almost, not almost, it's become mandatory. You see how smooth the transition has been? We never realized. We never realized that we've walked into a trap. That's what they're doing with the digital ID thing. They're slowly pushing the digital ID thing so that there'll come a time when the government will make it mandatory. They'll make it mandatory and say you should have a digital ID. Now you may be thinking, I'm a Bible teacher. What am I doing talking about all these things? Well, what I'm saying certainly is biblical in the sense that the Bible says that these things will come to pass. And for those of you who know your Bibles, you know where this is leading to. This is leading to the mark of the beast, which the Bible speaks about. That's why I'm talking about it. All right, so the private sector is pushing this, and they're saying that, you know, right now, it is in your best interest for you to opt for a digital ID. The next step would be, without a digital ID, you cannot open a bank account. You cannot operate your bank account. You cannot make payments. You cannot spend your own money. Already they have pushed us out of using cash to depending on a digital form of currency. Here in this nation, we almost don't use any cash. Almost. Everything is online. All payments. Even a vendor of vegetables sitting on the roadside accepts online payments. We just don't need cash at all. You see how they're pushing us towards these things. And the Bible speaks about it. The Bible speaks about it. Now, what's going to happen is that this digital ID, well, we know that right now it would just be an online identification card with your information stored on it. And probably you'll be given a number, right? And you use the number and all your information will appear. And they are saying, well, don't worry. If you give your digital ID number, let's say to a supermarket cashier, he won't be able to see all the other information stored there, like your medical history, your bank account, all that. He'll only be able to see what you allow him to see. So your privacy is secure. That's what they promise. But it's just a digital ID right now. Your information is stored there on that digital ID. But in the tribulation, for sure, this whole thing about having a digital ID will be in the form of a microchip. Now, before you start saying, oh, conspiracy theory, don't worry, I'm not straying away from the Word of God. I will show you the connection very soon. It's going to be in the form of a microchip. The thing is, they want to micromanage your whole life and the lives of all the people of the world. They want to be involved in every single detail of your life, of your life. You see, the difference between how the devil operates and how God operates is this. The devil wants control. God never controls. All right? God never controls. He gives us liberty. He tells us what to do. He commands us what to do. He gives us liberty to whether, to obey or disobey. But the devil is not like that. He's a control freak. He wants absolute control of your life and the lives of all the people. So information is power, they say, and it's very true. When they have information about you, they can control you. And that's what they're doing. Now, what better way to do it than to have your digital ID, that is your whole life, on a microchip that is implanted in your body. Right? We already have this, correct? We already have this. So many experiments have been made. People have inserted microchips inside their bodies, right? We have, all of us, seen those videos. The guy walks into his house, or at least comes to the door, and the door unlocks because that chip in his hand or wherever it is in his body speaks to that system that is installed in his door and tells it that it is a legitimate user. You open the door, so the door opens. He walks in and the lights come on, the television comes on, and all that stuff. It's already there. Why do you think they're doing this? You think the devil would allow such technology to come into the world without any purpose? Or you think God is behind that? What do you think? It certainly is not God. God doesn't want us to become lazy bums, you see. He wants us to be hardworking people. Well, some of these things are very convenient, but it makes us lazy. It makes us lazy. Right? Having a mind, you don't have the energy to open, to unlock your door and open it. You want it to happen automatically. Right? So, certainly God doesn't want us to become lazy people. It's the devil who wants us to be lazy. So this whole thing about the microchip, the interesting thing is being pushed by the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab himself time and again speaks about the microchip. By the way, if you go on to their website, to the website of the World Economic Forum, you will find hundreds of articles. All right, that's come back, I think. So, why is the World Economic Forum speaking so much about technology? They are talking about how technology should be made use of to restructure the world's financial system. And as a part of that, they are pushing for a digital ID. Again, as I've said, Klaus Schwab talks a lot about having digital IDs. And you know what he says every time he talks about a digital ID, or he talks about microchips a lot. Every time he speaks about these microchips, he points towards his forehead, or he points towards his hand in this manner. It's very interesting. Anyway, so you could go on the website of the World Economic Forum, and there you will see so much being spoken about technology. Now the thing is this, there will be a microchip involved, and that's because the World Economic System is pushing its, World Economic Forum is pushing it so much. Now with this, they can micromanage, the lives of the people of the world. Not only will your information be stored in there, but right now they are looking at how your moods, your thoughts, your actions, your feelings, your emotions can also be sensed by the microchip. That's right, I'm not making this up. You can go and check it out. Now I'm going to read quickly this article from the World Economic Forum's website. I'm not going to read the whole article, just an excerpt from that article that I read on their website. And this is about technology, and this is what it says. We are missing what we removed from our interactions a decade ago. Humanity, intimacy, depth, and empathy. What are they talking about? They're saying once we became, people who virtually live online for everything we do, right? Working is online. By the way, the pandemic pushed us towards this all the more, right? People started working from home. They are more and more reliant on the internet, and working from home has required that. So they're saying that not just now, but a decade ago, we removed from our interactions all these things because we work online. We do not interact with people so much, so there is no need for our humanity, for any intimacy, depth, empathy. These things are not required. You're working with a computer. Even if you're interacting with someone, it's only words that you exchange on the computer. So we have removed these things, and that is true. What they're saying is true. Real conversations instead of mass influence. Interactions that make us feel closer to each other. They are working towards this, they say. Interactions that make us feel closer to each other. They're not saying get rid of the internet, go to the office, work with other people and interact with them. No, online. They are speaking about interactions that make us feel closer to each other. In the future, our focus will be on the human experience. The transition to the metaverse will not be a technological but a sociological paradigm shift. Now these may be a lot of words for some. They're saying that in the future our focus will be on human experience, the transition to the metaverse. Metaverse is like, this virtual world that they have created where you can have your companies, you can do anything. Your life will be online. You'll have a different life there on metaverse. The transition to the metaverse will not be a technological transition, but a sociological paradigm shift. So it's not about just getting on there and just continuing in a new level, right? In the same manner that we did previously. That is no interactions, right? No empathy, no feelings. It's not like that. It's going to be different now, is what they are saying. How so? The metaverse will be shaped by the communication of our emotions. You see that? That's very important. The metaverse will be shaped by the communication of our emotions, enabled by technologies such as virtual and augmented reality and brain-computer interfaces. Again, these are very big words for some of us, but I'll make it as simple as possible. What they're saying is this: once, of course, how they're going to achieve all this? Through the microchip. I will show you that later. But they're saying in the future, our life online will be focused on human experience. Human experience. All that human experience that we have lost, right, by working online. We will restore all that. They're trying to make it look like you'll have a normal life even if it is a virtual life online. It'll be normal. Human experience shaped by communication of our emotions. You see that? So you will be online, but you will still be able to make the other person feel your emotions. What does it take to do that? Think about it. So how are they going to achieve this? Enabled by technologies such as virtual reality. Well, this is already there. It's not a new thing. Augmented reality, as they call it. Virtual and augmented reality. Again, this is not something new. It's already been there. Augmented reality. Reality will be augmented so that your human emotions can be communicated through these technologies. Right? You already have these, I don't know if they're video games or what, but you keep this device on your eyes, right? It's fixed to your head, and you can just with the movement of your eyes, I believe, I'm not very sure, you can play the game. And I've seen people playing games with that thing. You can't see anything around you. You're in this virtual world and you have to walk. Let's say you walk on a thin, narrow bridge. They feel like they're really doing it. And sometimes they fall. If they fall in the virtual world, they fall down here in the real world as well. They can't make out the difference between what is virtual reality and real life. Augmented reality, virtual reality. It's scary, but it's already there, brethren. It's already there. And they want to make use of these things to enhance human experience online. All right, now